we have been talking about a certain, we had like a certain saying that we keep saying. So, Charity, Charity, give it to us. Good job. All right. So, yes, God uses all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to tell a better story of His grace and redemption. And so today we are talking about an area of life where I believe that we're all going to need a little redemption. We all can always use a little redemption in this area. And so I need y'all to listen tonight because tonight's a good one. I mean, they're all good, I think, I hope. But this is a really good one because I think it's something that we all really deal with. All right. So, you ladies, y'all pay attention on the floor. Okay. So, we are talking about our insecurities tonight. Yeah, we're gonna get deep. Okay. So we're gonna get deep into talking about. Listen up. Listen up. Listen up. Hey, hey. I don't know why everybody went crazy. All right. Listen. All right. So we're gonna talk about our insecurities and how to actually move past them into freedom and having freedom from the insecurities. All right. So if you're ready to go, say ready. Have you ever heard the idea that what you believe informs how you behave? Have we heard that? Are we paying attention? Have you ever heard that? The idea that what you believe informs how you behave. And eventually, your behavior over time will shape who you become. So, this is true. The life that you live tomorrow is built on the choices that you make today. So, example, you really wanted to ask this certain person to go out with you or to go to a dance with you or something like that. All right. So, example in my life, I'll give you all an example. Whenever I was y'all's age, when I was a senior in high school, so we have a couple of seniors. When I was a senior in high school, I wasn't dating anybody, so I needed a date to prom. And we were getting really close to prom, and I still didn't have a date, so people were starting to, like get taken because, everybody was asking everybody and stuff, and I was like, man, I need somebody. But there was this girl that I really wanted to ask. But I was scared. I was fearful because I was like, what happens? She gonna, if she turns me down, she makes fun of me. I'm not, attractive enough to be with her because she's way prettier than I am, and so I start to get in my head, right? And I never ended up calling her, or I never ended up saying anything to her, or anything like that. So it didn't go the way that I wanted it to because I talked myself out of it because of what? Insecurities, right? What we're talking about tonight. So, how do we move past that? All right, how do we get past these insecurities? Because we typically trust our insecurities more than we trust our wisdom or the wisdom of God, and so we got to figure out how we can move past those insecurities. So today we're going to talk about a gentleman in the Bible, and his name is Gideon. Everybody say Gideon. Has anybody ever heard the story of Gideon? From what? No. I have a. This is probably a different Gideon. So we're going to talk about this gentleman named Gideon. So who is Gideon? Gideon is not from Gravity Falls. He is in the Bible. He is in the book of Judges, which is we're going to read that in a second. He's an ordinary Israelite, right? God's people, the Israelites. It's real big behind me. An ordinary Israelite, he's just trying to make it by, okay? He's just trying to just live his life, average life, just make it by, and just kind of fly under the radar of the Midianites who were oppressing the nation of Israel. And he's this guy with doubts and with insecurities, and he didn't think that he came from the right family or was in any way qualified to do anything great or anything in life, so I'll just kind of live an average life and be done whenever time is done. And that's kind of how Gideon was. But here's the cool thing. God picked him. God picked him to do something really cool. And he called him a mighty warrior, and he gave him the task of actually overthrowing and driving out the Midianites who were in control of the Israelites at this time. So, here's some context to it all, because we know, as we've been saying, that in order to read the Bible wisely, we have to remember that Jesus is king, and context is everything. So let's read a little bit of the context before we get to actual Gideon. So Judges chapter 6 verse 1 says this: the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight. So the Lord handed them over to the Midianites for 7 years. Then if you skip on to verse 7, it says, when they cried out to the Lord because of Midian, the Lord sent a prophet to the Israelites. He said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: I brought you up out of slavery in Egypt. I rescued you from the Egyptians and from all who oppressed you. I drove out your enemies and gave you their land. I told you, I am the Lord your God. You must not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live. But you have not listened to me. All right? Exactly. So the situation is not good, right? So here's the thing. Maybe your life isn't going very good right now. Life definitely was not stellar for these people, right? It was not good. And if it's not going good, maybe a question to ask is, am I doing the very thing that God asked me not to do? Or am I not doing something that he clearly asked me to do? Because that is what happened here, right? That very first verse. It said they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And so God handed them over to the Midianites, right? So, because often, how do we do the very things that God told us not to? We do this a lot. Maybe you're hating on people, and then it comes into the form of bullying. You may not, know that it's even bullying sometimes, but just saying certain things to people, it trigger them. Maybe you're lusting. Maybe you're looking at things you're not supposed to. Maybe you're, this or that or whatever, and it's things that that are against God's word and what he's wanting for you in your life. And yet, we still wonder, why is our life not going well? Why are things not going well? Well, it's because we're not following God. So, maybe the reason you haven't stepped out in obedience to do that thing or stop that habit or find new friends or start that Jesus club in your school is because you're afraid. You have fear in your life. You have insecurities and you're afraid that you might fail. Here's the thing. Insecurity is in the driver's seat and it's slamming on the brakes. And it's slamming on the brakes real hard and making everything come to a stop. So, if that's the case, what do we do? Let's talk about 3 things. So 3 things to overcoming insecurities. The first one is to admit them. Admit your insecurities. Not always the easiest thing to do, right? But it's the first step to overcoming them. To admit them. Admit your insecurities, all right? So, moving on a little bit into Judges chapter 6, we go on to verses 12 through 15. And this is where we finally see Gideon. It says, the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, mighty hero, the Lord is with you. Sir, Gideon replied. I like the way Gideon was so polite. He's like, sir, if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles our ancestors told us about? Didn't they say the Lord brought us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him and said, go with the strength that you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. But Lord, I just feel like he has a British accent for some reason. He's so polite. The Lord, Gideon replied, which I don't know why I associate that with being polite, because a lot of British people are not the most polite. But anyway, doesn't matter. But Lord, Gideon replied, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. All right? So, I love this passage for Gideon because at the beginning, he's so bold, right? He's like, hey, why did this happen? Why have you turned us over? Why is all this bad stuff happening to us? And then whenever the Lord says, all right, you're a mighty warrior, I'm going to have you go and do this. He's like, hold up. I didn't say that I wanted it to be me. I didn't want to be the one that did it. I can't do it. And he starts naming off all the reasons why. My family's not good enough. We're the weakest. I'm the weakest out of my family, so I definitely can't do it. At least with the strongest out of our family. And so he goes, something needs to be done, but he doesn't want to be the one that does it because he has all these insecurities. So we see this contrast between God's view of Gideon and his own view of himself. God says, look, you have mighty strength. And Gideon goes, I'm weak. But what he's not doing is hiding behind arrogance or false humility. So he's not like, well, I have been working out, God. Yeah, I am a mighty warrior. You know, I look like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Yeah, I'm big. But he's also not like, God, not me. No, you couldn't be thinking of me to lead a rebellion. I've never done that before. That's not on my resume. It's neither of these responses actually help us past our insecurities. It's just kind of covering them up and hoping that no one notices. It's kind of like whenever your parents ask you to clean your bedroom and you just take a blanket and cover up all the junk on the floor, or you just throw it all in the closet or kick it under the bed. Yeah, been there before? I was there before. It's kind of the same thing. We're just trying to cover it up. Because admitting you are insecure is the first step in overcoming your insecurities. Y'all ready for a really good point? Write this down if you're taking notes. Until you own your insecurities are going to own you. Somebody said, come on, that's good. Until you own your insecurities will own you. So that's why the first step is to admit them. Admit your insecurities. Own them. Own your insecurities. Because they will own you if you don't own them. All right? So, moving on to number 2. You have admitted your insecurities now. Number 2 is talk to God. All right? Talk to God. And make sure I underline, bless you. I underline 2 because I want you to realize that it's talking to him and not talking at him. We'll get to that in a minute. So, moving on in our story here, we go to verse 17 and 18. And Gideon replies with, if you are truly going to help me, show me a sign to prove that it is really the Lord speaking to me. He says, don't go away until I come back and bring my offering to you. He answered, I will stay here until you return. So what's going on here? Gideon is asking, God, are you really here? Are you really with me in this? You said you're here. Are you actually really here? Have you ever done this in your life before? I've done this in my life. I've done it in my life, with what God wanted me to do, and maybe you're in that same spot and you're asking questions. You go, man, I really feel like God's wanting me to do this and do that, but I don't really know if it doesn't feel like God's quite there with me. Because that's that fear, that's that insecurity that's taken over. So what do you do when you don't know what to do? That's the question, right? You talk to God. And I know that sounds simple, so let's get deeper into it. But I think when we are confused and we're trying to figure out what to do, sometimes the problem is we talk to everyone but God. Sometimes we go to our 5 best friends first. We go to our group of friends and go, all right, hey, I need some advice, guys. Here's the tea. Here's the whatever. And I don't think they'll say tea anymore, but here's the deal. Here's what's going on. I need you to give me some advice. Or you go to your parents. You go to a friend. You go to your dog. You're like, hey, I just need to spill everything to you. Bernard. I don't know what your dog's name is. Your dog or your cat. It's like you talk to everybody or everything or anything except God. And it's not necessarily that you mean to do it. It's just you do it. It's just it happens. But here's the thing. If God really wants you to do something, don't. That he wants you to do it. See, God wasn't playing 20 questions with Gideon. But he was willing to stay and remind Gideon, however many times it took, that he was the one that was sending him out. God was saying, look, I'm the one that's sending you out. I'm giving you that power behind you. I am here with you. All right. And I want you to realize before we move on to the next step, that I'm not saying this. I'm not saying don't talk to people, don't seek confirmation. I'm not saying that, all right? Because here's the thing, talking to people can be a good way to find God, but talking to God is the way. So, talking to your adult leaders and your pastors and everything, that's great. You need to do that, but you need to make sure that you consult with God. Don't just consult with a person of this world. Make sure you're consulting with him, because talking to God is the way. Overcoming our insecurities. We have admit them, talk to God, and now the last one is do it scared. All right? Overcoming your insecurities. Do it scared. All right? So move on to Judges chapter 6, verse 27. And it says this right here, all right? It says, so Gideon took 10 of the servants and did as the Lord had commanded. But he did it at night because he was what? Afraid. He was afraid of the other members of his father's household and the people of the town. So Gideon did it scared. But here's the thing. Gideon was still willing to obey and to do it. He was willing to do what God asked him to do and to tear down the altars that people had built to worship false gods and everything that God was asking him to do. But he was afraid. So what did he do? He completed the mission. He just did it at night whenever nobody was paying attention. So, have you ever been in a situation like this where you chose to do the right thing, chose to do something that God has asked you to do, even though you were scared? A lot of you can say yes, because I've seen a lot of you do it. I've seen a lot of you, whenever I ask you to pray, still pray. And I know you're terrified. I've seen a lot of you share your stories and your testimonies whenever you were scared and terrified, right? So I've seen a lot of you come up here on stage on a Sunday morning in front of 100 people and talk to them, even though you're scared and you're terrified. Can I let y'all in on a little secret? Every Sunday morning, I almost puke. And I've been doing it for how many ever times now? I mean, I've nearly preached every Sunday this entire year. And I still, literally, I get scared. It's okay to be scared. It means you're living. It means you're alive. It means that, and it also means that you care about whatever it is. It's okay to have butterflies. It's okay to be scared. I know a guy that is in charge of, I don't know him, but I've heard this story. I was at a conference. He's in charge of this church called Life Church, and they have like 50, 60 churches all throughout the nation. If you use the Bible app that's called the U Version Bible app, that they made it. That church made it. I mean, he was like the pioneer of it. And this guy still says that he pukes every morning before he goes out and preaches. And he's been doing it for years and years and years, and he still throws up because he gets so nervous. But it's because you care about it. I come 6 o'clock every morning on a Sunday morning. And if you would come 6 o'clock, I get up here and I rehearse. I practice. So I challenge you to do what Gideon did and do it scared, whatever it is, whatever God's asking you to do. So what step can you do in private to help you develop the courage to do it in public? So that's the thing I would encourage you to do, is practice things in private so that you eventually can do them in public. So if you want to pray in front of people, pray in private. If you want to share your testimony and your story to people, do it in private. And then that way you can eventually do it in public. If you want to worship in front of people up on the stage, sing and practice and work on truly worshiping God in private so that he will eventually want to use you to do it in public. So, do things in private so you develop the courage enough to do it in public. So, how do we overcome insecurity? How do we get unstuck and get the fear out of the driver's seat? We admit our insecurities, we talk to God, and we do it scared, right? So, for those of you that don't know the story of Gideon, what ends up happening is read chapter 7. It's really cool, the story of Gideon. But very, very short version, because I want y'all to go into this discussion, because I think we've got some good questions for y'all. If you really open up, it'll be awesome tonight. But what ends up happening is there's 22,000 troops, and God says, we ain't doing that. He says, we're whittling them down. So they go through this whole process of whittling down the numbers, and they finally get to where Gideon just has 300 people. And God says, that's all I need. That's the number right there. That's what we need. So it's Gideon and 300 guys to take on this whole entire town to overthrow these Midianite people that are in charge, that are in control of the Israelites. And God says, throw your weapons away. We don't need any weapons. So they just get ram's horns, and they get pots of clay and put torches in them. And so at night, they start blowing these ram's horns. So it's super loud. It's 301, if you count Gideon, 301 people, and they surround the walls. They go in different areas of the wall. They surround the wall, and they have the fire in there in the pots. So it looks like a big shadow of a ton of people coming, right? And then they blow these ram's horns real loud. And so they scare the mess out of these Midianites, and a lot of them flee, and others actually end up fighting each other and killing each other because they think that they're fighting the enemy. And so it's a really cool story. I encourage you to check it out. But it's just cool to see how God used Gideon, even though Gideon was afraid and insecure the whole entire time, because God is faithful. Amen. So when you start following God and taking those steps of obedience, the fear doesn't immediately go away. I need you to realize that. Even though you're following God, even though that you're, following into the footsteps of Jesus, that fear isn't necessarily going to go away. Like I said, I still get scared whenever I get up and preach on Sunday mornings in front of all the adults and stuff. But your faith will grow with each and every single step that you take until eventually the fears and insecurities that were so loud before, they start to fade out. And that's what we want whenever it comes to our insecurities. All right? Everybody cool with all that? All right.